The Afghan Foreign Ministry says Taliban officials have arrived in Baku to attend the COP29 climate conference, according to Reuters. It will be the first time they've attended such a summit since the former insurgents took power in Afghanistan in 2021, when the US-led NATO mission they were fighting for over 20 years pulled out of the country. Officials from the Azerbaijan government, which is hosting the climate summit, confirmed that the Taliban had been invited to COP29 as observers rather than as a government delegation. The Taliban are not formally recognized within the UN system as the legitimate government of Afghanistan, but Tahim Bahis in Kabul says people there are positive they're coming.
Afghanistan is attending a UN climate summit for the first time since Taliban took power. In 2015, Afghanistan was a signatory to the landmark Paris Agreement, under which almost every country in the world agreed to slash emissions to limit soaring global temperatures. Afghanistan is one of the countries hardest hit by climate change. Just this year, flash floods killed hundreds and swamped swaths of agricultural land in Afghanistan, where 80% of the people depend on farming to survive. In 2023, Stephen Rodriguez, the UN Development Agency's representative in Afghanistan, stated that drought, flooding, land degradation, and decreasing agricultural productivity are major threats facing the country. The current Afghanistan government does not hold a seat in the UN General Assembly. It's neither formally recognized by any of the UN member states, and it was not invited to last year's COP summit held in Dubai. Officials from the country's National Environmental Protection Agency have repeatedly said climate change should not be politicized and called for environment-related projects to be reinstated in Afghanistan. The Afghan public will feel a sense of relief seeing an Afghan delegation invited to the COP29 summit in Baku.
Mediation efforts between Israel and Hamas for a Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal are currently stalled, according to Qatar's foreign ministry. The Gulf state posted online to say it has paused its role in the negotiations, stating it will resume only when both sides show a serious willingness to end the ongoing conflict. The intention of the talks was to bring an end to the war in Gaza, which has now claimed the lives of over 45,000 Palestinians. Qatar, alongside the United States and Egypt, has played a major role in rounds of so far fruitless talks to broker a ceasefire. The latest round of talks in mid-October failed to produce a deal, with Hamas rejecting a short-term proposal. Earlier this weekend in Tel Aviv, demonstrators demanded the release of the Israeli hostages who were captured during the October the 7th terror attack 400 days ago.
Migration and women's rights, the focus of two separate protests in major cities in the United States. Hundreds of people gathered in New York on Saturday to express concern over the re-election of Donald Trump. The protesters fear he will tear apart thousands of immigrant families living and working in the U.S. Trump will retake control of the White House in January and has promised the biggest deportation of undocumented migrants in American history. It was one of the main themes of the returning president's campaign.
The United States is now an occupied country. Can you believe I have to say that? We're an occupied country. They're coming in, and they're by the thousands.
Elsewhere this weekend, in Washington, D.C., another protest took place over the fears that Trump's re-election will restrict women's reproductive rights.
I believe that it's true that Trump will approve an abortion ban for the entire United States. And I'm here to fight back against that. I'm going to keep fighting, and he has threatened to throw protesters and and people that disagree with him in prison or have the military come after us. And this is a hill I'm willing to die on. This is my freedom.
Trump is yet to officially endorse a national abortion ban, saying the decision should be left to states. Demonstrators say they will continue to oppose his plans to restrict women's rights and his tough line on migration. This is the result of what was meant to be a peaceful protest in Spain. Tens of thousands of people gathered in Valencia on Saturday to express their anger of the government's handling of last month's deadly floods in the east of the country.
We are alive. I don't know how, and the only thing I want to say is that this abandonment and institutional negligence must be held accountable. And even though I'm exhausted, haven't slept at all, and am very anxious, I'm here to demand answers because this is not normal.
Many called for the resignation of Valencian Regional President Carlos Mazón, who they blamed for a delayed response, which they say cost the lives of many. Our hands are stained with mud, yours with blood. That was the message protesters said they wanted to give the government by leaving muddy handprints on the walls of the regional palace.
The regional government didn't warn on time for the flooding, didn't respond on time, didn't get the help from the central government on time, and they just did everything that they could wrong. So we want them to quit and to let the new government to take over the responsibilities to clean up the mess that they left.
Spain's deadly floods claimed the lives of more than 220 people, while nearly 80 are still missing, and a huge cleanup operation continues.
A significant protest unfolded in Buenos Aires' historic Parque Lezama on Saturday as thousands gathered to rally against the policies proposed by President Javier Milei. The event, backed by various social and political organizations, vocalized deep concerns over political economic measures, workers' rights, and the safeguarding of democratic principles. The protest not only illuminated widespread apprehension about possible reductions in social spending and labor rights under Milei's envisioned governance, but also highlighted the urgent demand for policy measures that prioritize the protection of the working class and the marginalized populations. Participants united in a collective call for maintaining and enhancing workers' rights and social safety nets amid rising political tension in the country.
Wildfires are continuing to burn across the state of New Jersey in the United States, with firefighters intensifying efforts to curb the damage. It's part of the so-called tri-state area that has experienced severe drought over the past few months, leading to fire outbreaks in the region. The New Jersey Forest Fire Service says they are hoping for rains to arrive to support their efforts in bringing an end to what has been described as the worst fire outbreak in the region this year. It follows an evacuation order earlier this week on the other side of the U.S., where over 10,000 people were told to leave their homes in California due to wildfires. Satellite images have revealed the extent of the destruction there. Tens of thousands of acres are still ablaze across the United States.
The German capital aglow with music and fireworks as thousands gathered to celebrate 35 years since the fall of the Berlin Wall. On Saturday, in various locations across Berlin, an evening of music and light displays to commemorate the occasion. The toppling of the wall, which separated the communist-ruled East from the capitalist Western Berlin for nearly 3 decades and became a potent symbol of the Cold War, was followed by the reunification of Germany in the 1990s. An art exhibition of 5,000 posters was displayed this year along the area where the wall once stood. Tens of thousands of people attended the celebrations, calling on people to unite.
China has sent up 4 new satellites into orbit this weekend. The PiSat-2 will join another 4 that were sent earlier this year. There'll be a further 2 more launches to provide 16 of these satellites by the end of March next year. China says the main aim is to provide radar imaging services, and they'll focus on serving domestic areas.